Hi everybody, Gene Burnett from GeneBurnett.com. I'm talking with my student Shona today, and we're talking a little bit about how she uses Tai Chi to help her son. Her son Colton used to be a student of mine years ago. He came down with ALS how long ago?
11 years ago.
11 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, so he is a survivor. He's a really great and talented, hard-working photographer. You guys assist him in taking him to places where he can shoot his pictures, and
Yeah, he uses a power chair and has a camera mount, and
right.
we go out whenever we can.
And he shoots with
Film.
with real film.
Yeah.
So that all has to be developed, and he's gotten some notice as a photographer in the world. His website. I'll post a link to his website and where you can see some of his pictures. So when Colton came down with ALS, he gradually started to lose motor control, right?
Yes, especially in his hands and his legs.
Right. So he gradually started to lose that stuff. And you are a primary caregiver, or one of?
I have been primary. Now I'm half-time. We have
Okay.
a caregiver in the morning, but
Okay.
he still can walk with aid, which is
Right.
what I do, and uses a computer a lot,
Right.
Which is very unusual for an ALS patient.
Okay, right.
And,
And so you have found that. Now, how long have we been doing Tai Chi?
well, in all, about 5 years.
5 years.
With a couple gaps.
Okay, a couple gaps in there. And we have done the simplified form. We've done, of course, the warm-ups and Qigong and stuff, and also the cane form and a decent amount of pushing hands and partner
Yes.
work and part Dalu and partner drills and that stuff. And you were telling me a second ago about how some of the similarities and some of the differences between Tai Chi partner work and working with Colton every day. Similar principles,
Yes.
similar physics and physical dynamics, but a different goal, right?
Yes. Well, I help him, aid him to walk, for instance, to get
Right.
to his power chair, etc. So I'm walking backwards, aiding him, who's walking forwards. So unlike push hands, where your intention is to unbalance your partner, we are both trying to maintain our balance.
Right. You're trying to keep him in balance above all, right?
So I kind of see it as a backwards form.
Okay. All right.
And using the elements of Tai Chi, in that I have to yield and balance him at the same time and
Right.
stay grounded.
Grounding, yeah, really important, right?
And,
Because you can't. He's a good-sized guy. You can't just grab him and muscle him into position.
No, I have to be completely tuned into him while walking backwards. So I'm not
Wow.
seeing where I'm going, but I kind of know the terrain.
Right. But if he
and
starts to tip a certain direction, you have to.
I have to counter that.
You have to get around and get between him and the ground sometimes.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yes, and it can be amusing, especially when we have a puppy who thinks that he needs to herd Colton whenever we're walking.
So you have a third partner who's interfering.
Yes.
Well, you have to keep. A kind of a peripheral spatial awareness. You have to be aware of the room,
Yes.
the surface you're walking on, the furniture, the things around you, the dog,
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
get in the way, and
yeah.
then, but most importantly, Colton's center of gravity,
Yes.
which might tip and might go a certain direction that might not be as planned, and then you have to keep track of your center of gravity and your point of contact with him,
Right.
so that you can stay in the right
And
position.
sometimes he will say, "You're not pulling enough." So it's all about being tuned into him,
Right.
or you're pulling him too much.
Right,
And if he starts to fall backwards, you've got to compensate by, yourself going backwards, and it's kind of like teeter-tottering. in a way.
Right. So is that the most challenging thing, like just moving from place to like movement type stuff?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
Lifting him up, I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
But I do have to negotiate him into the chair, which involves strength.
Right.
But, yeah, and I use the Tai Chi because it helps me to stay focused if I see it as a form that I'm doing, because it's very repetitive.
Right. But it's an interesting mix of repetitive with the potential to be suddenly extremely unpredictable.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
suddenly something. When was the last time? When was the last time you were helping him do something and something happened unexpectedly that you had to do a quick move or a quick reposition to?
Well, he did lose his balance, and I didn't go backwards. I tipped forward, so it looked like we were both going to collapse. But
Okay.
I managed to ground myself, and
Oh, okay.
by
Cool.
by sinking down, actually, like you would do
Right.
the normal simplified
Right,
form,
right.
and that grounded me to be able
Excellent.
to.
And how
to
often does
hold.
something like that happen where you're out of the ordinary and suddenly you're improvising?
Not too much.
Like every week or so, or
No.
Not even
It's sort of like being experienced with the simplified form. It's very routine and orderly,
And
mostly.
every once in a while you
And
go,
then
wait a second.
Yeah, but maintaining that focus is very important.
Right. So that I would think would make it even harder. Like if he was falling constantly or off balance constantly, you would be always on the alert for that and doing it all the time. But most of the time it goes smoothly. Most of the time there's no problem. But but you got to be just as alert because every
Yes.
once in a while he could start to go an odd direction and you have to whip around and
Yeah, it's kind of like meditation in that you don't want other thoughts coming in. You want to be focused on that
Right.
he's going to stay upright.
right.
You're going to be able
Right,
to counter
right.
his moves and get him to where he needs to be.
Right. Okay. So now tell us a little bit about your Tai Chi relationship with Colton's daughter Etta.
Well, from the beginning, it's kind of like the movie
Pink Panther.
Pink Panther, where we try to touch each other's stomach.
Okay.
And
How old is Etta now?
Ed is now 10.
Okay. When
and
did
we've been
this start?
doing it since she was about 4.
Wow.
And it's like all of a sudden we start, and
So she's like Kato.
she's like Kato, or I'm like Kato, whoever.
You just suddenly
decides.
go boom.
Yeah, and then the intent is not to hurt each other.
Right.
It's just to
Get in there.
make a
Make
touch. or
contact.
what- yeah.
Right. So she must be getting good at this.
Oh, she's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet,
She can
I
get
bet.
me most of the time
I
now.
bet. So that's an interesting way to introduce principles of flow and distance management.
Yes.
Because you have to be alert to the distance between their hand and your stomach and your
Right.
hand and their stomach, and to have to kind of and also improv, to be ready.
Yeah.
Ready to work. It's a great way to introduce a young child to those principles by making it a game, I think. I always like that idea of making a game with a kid to do some simple thing like that. I remember
Yeah.
one time I taught a bunch of junior high school kids an elective back in Seattle years ago, and these kids were we were in a big gym, and they were literally running up and down the walls, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to get them to slow down and try to do a Tai Chi form. So I just found a painted circle on the basketball court, and I just said, let's see if you guys can get me out of this circle. You can do anything you want but hit me. And they grabbed me and pulled me and pushed me, so I got them into thinking about moving someone else's center. Or I said, okay, how high can you jump and how quietly can you land?
Right.
To get them into springiness in the legs. But I had to make a game out of it because they just didn't have the discipline and concentration to slow down and do the breathing. These are just typical crazy hyper-American kids,
Right.
So sometimes making a game out of it can introduce the same principles.
Right.
That's something I've discovered over time, is that teaching is, for me anyway, it's not about taking this form and these things I know and sort of imprinting it on students in a one-size-fits-all kind of way. I look at it more like the principles are the most important thing. The form, doing the form the traditional way or traditional training or the traditional order of training, that's one way to learn the principles. It's tried and true. It works for a lot of people, but not for everyone. Not for
Right.
11-year-old
especially a
kids
young kid.
running around
Yeah.
climbing the walls, or even like when I was working with Colton, I had to take into account what was happening with his body as he was starting to lose more motor control. So I can't force someone to do things they can't do, so I would adjust the exercises
Right.
accordingly,
Right.
and I do that with everybody to some degree. We all have different goals. We have different fitness levels. We have different training goals. We have different levels of talent, different levels of ability, different levels of practice time available. And so I got to work with each person and sort of see what do they need? How can I help them reach their goals using what I know about these training methods? So in a way, like improving as a teacher is, at least for me, is similar to what you're doing, because I can't just enforce my agenda or expect my agenda to work. It may work most times, but sometimes it doesn't
Yes,
work. You
very
have
similar.
to, you really have to be in the present and deal with the present and deal with what's going on. So, anything else you want to add about working with Colton? That seems like
No, I think I've got it.
you're a warrior, Shona. I really appreciate you sharing this, and give my love to Colton, and Happy
you.
New Year.
Yeah,
It's a
Happy
new
New
year.
Year.
And thanks very much for talking with us.
Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks a
Okay.
lot. Jane Burnett from JaneBurnett.com signing off.